Desmond had barely entered his office that morning when he let out a loud scream that startled everyone around him. Within seconds, his colleagues dropped what they were doing and rushed into his office. "Desmond, what happened? Are you okay?" But Desmond wasn't looking at them. He was staring at a spot inside the office, his face filled with terror. "There!" he shouted, pointing with a trembling finger. "Can't you see them?" His colleagues looked in the direction he was pointing, but saw nothing. "See who?" "The Masquerades!" Desmond cried. "They're right there!" Nobody understood what he was talking about, yet Desmond could see them clearly. 3 towering masquerades were dancing in the middle of his office. Their raffia costumes swayed as they moved in circles. Their wooden masks looked exactly like the ones he had feared as a child in his village. Desmond rubbed his eyes repeatedly. The masquerades remained. The creatures suddenly stopped dancing. Then they turned their heads and stared directly at him. Desmond nearly collapsed. "I want to leave!" he screamed, but his colleagues held him. "Please, calm down. There is nothing here." Desmond looked around desperately. Everyone appeared normal. Nobody seemed frightened except him. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the masquerades vanished, as though they had never been there. The office fell silent. Desmond stood frozen. His heart pounded against his chest. For the rest of the day, he tried to focus on work, but his hands shook whenever he remembered those eyes staring at him. By evening, he drove home in silence. The incident refused to leave his mind. Was he losing his sanity? Was stress finally destroying him? He barely slept that night. The next morning, he arrived at the bank hoping it had all been a strange hallucination. The moment he stepped into his office, his blood ran cold. The masquerades were back, dancing, spinning, staring. Desmond let out an even louder scream than before. The entire floor erupted into panic. His colleagues rushed into his office again. Once again, they found nothing. Only Desmond could see the terrifying figures. By now, whispers had started spreading through the bank. Some believed he was under extreme stress. Others thought he was having a mental breakdown. His colleagues advised him to take leave. "Desmond, you've been working too hard. You need rest. Take a few weeks off." But Desmond refused. How could rest solve something that looked this real? Then it happened again. By the third appearance, he no longer cared what people thought. He just wanted the torment to stop. That evening, his closest friends sat him down. "You need spiritual help." Desmond hesitated, but deep down, he knew ordinary explanations no longer made sense. The following day, they traveled together to a famous spiritualist. The old man listened carefully as Desmond described everything. When he finished, the spiritualist closed his eyes. Several minutes passed. Then he opened them. "What you are seeing is real." Desmond leaned forward. The old man lowered his voice. "Your village people are after you." Desmond's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "You received a huge amount of money recently." The statement hit him immediately. It was true. Only a few weeks earlier, Desmond had suddenly come into an enormous amount of money. The spiritualist nodded slowly. "They are jealous. They don't want you to enjoy your success." Fear washed over Desmond. At last, someone seemed to have an explanation. The spiritualist performed several rituals before making small incisions on parts of Desmond's body. When he finished, he smiled confidently. "You will never see those masquerades again." For the first time in weeks, hope returned. Desmond went home relieved, and surprisingly, the old man's solution appeared to work. 1 day passed, nothing happened. 3 days, still nothing. The masquerades had vanished. Desmond felt victorious. The nightmare was over, or so he thought, because after a few peaceful days, something far worse began. The masquerades returned, not in his office, not while he was awake, but in his dreams. The first night, they chased him through a dark forest. The second night, they surrounded him. The third night, they attacked him. Their sticks crashed against his body. Their whips tore into his skin. He screamed, begged, cried, but they showed no mercy. The pain felt unbelievably real. Then he woke up, sweating, shaking, breathing heavily. But what terrified him most wasn't the dream. It was the pain. His entire body hurt, exactly where they had beaten him. He switched on the light. His heart nearly stopped. Fresh marks covered parts of his body. Desmond stumbled backward. No! His voice barely came out. This can't be happening. Yet it was. Night after night, the attacks continued. Every evening became a source of terror. He stopped looking forward to sleep. The moment he closed his eyes, the masquerade appeared. The beatings became more violent. The injuries became worse. Desmond began moving from one prayer house to another. He spent money, nothing changed. The masquerades kept coming, every night without fail. That one day, exhausted and desperate, he visited another prophet. The elderly prophet listened quietly. Unlike the others, he asked very few questions. When Desmond finished speaking, the prophet stared at him for a long moment. Then he said something unexpected. "You took what does not belong to you." The words landed like a hammer. Desmond frowned. "What?" "You heard me." The prophet's eyes narrowed. "You took what belongs to someone else, and until you return it, your suffering will only increase." Anger exploded inside Desmond. "That's a lie! I have never stolen from anybody. You're just like all the other fake prophets." The prophet remained calm, but Desmond stormed out furiously. He drove home convinced the man was a fraud. Yet that night, everything changed. The masquerade came again. Only this time, there were dozens of them. They chased him through darkness. Their footsteps thundered behind him. Their voices echoed everywhere. He ran until his lungs burned. Then they caught him. The beating that followed was unlike anything he had ever experienced. They struck him from every direction until he collapsed, his body broken, his strength gone. Then in the dream, he watched his entire life flash before his eyes. His childhood, his youth, his rise to wealth. Every secret, every lie, every hidden act, one after another. And then he died. Everything went black. Suddenly, Desmond jolted awake, but instead of speaking, a strange sound came from his mouth. He was barking, like a dog, loudly, uncontrollably. Desmond felt the floor crying. For the first time, he truly believed he was dying. The moment daylight came, he rushed back to the prophet's church. Gone was the pride. He fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "Please, help me, sir. The masquerades are killing me." The prophet looked at him quietly. "Then, tell me the truth." Desmond lowered his head. His body shook. At last, he confessed. The prophet had been right all along. But before Desmond could ask for prayers, the prophet raised his hand. "No." Desmond froze. "No prayer will help you. No anointing oil. No fasting. No deliverance." The prophet's voice became firm. "There is only one way." Desmond's heart pounded. The prophet pointed directly at him. You must return what you stole. You must confess to the person you wronged. You must make restitution. Until you do, no power on earth will set you free. Desmond ran out of the prophet's church like a man being chased by death itself. The prophet's word kept ringing in his ears. Return what you stole, or nothing will save you. Desmond was truly afraid. The memories of the previous night's nightmare refused to leave him. The death had felt real, and deep inside, he knew the next attack might be his last. Without returning home, he drove straight to Madame Felicia's address. But when he arrived, he froze. Household items were scattered everywhere. Plastic chairs, a mattress, cooking pots, buckets. Everything was outside. Madame Felicia sat on the ground beside her belongings, crying quietly. Her 2 children sat close to her. The landlord had finally carried out his threats. They had been evicted. Desmond's chest tightened. The sight hit him harder than any masquerade ever had. This was the woman he had destroyed. Before anyone could ask questions, Desmond rushed forward. Then he fell flat on the ground. Madame Felicia looked up in shock. The neighbors became silent. Desmond began crying uncontrollably. "Please, forgive me." Madame Felicia frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Please forgive me." Desmond rolled on the dusty ground. His expensive clothes became stained. His face was covered in tears. People watched in disbelief. Madame Felicia knew him. Of course she knew him. Desmond had been her late husband's account officer. Throughout her painful struggle with the bank, he had been the one assisting her. Or at least, that was what she thought. Whenever she came to the bank, Desmond welcomed her politely. Whenever she felt frustrated, he encouraged her not to give up. He had always appeared helpful, patient, professional, trustworthy. Now he was on the floor begging like a condemned man. Madame Felicia stared at him. "Desmond, what is going on?" Desmond could barely speak. "Please, just show me mercy. For God's sake, forgive me." The widow's confusion grew. "Forgive you for what?" Then Desmond lifted his head. His face was soaked with tears. And finally, he confessed. The words came out trembling. I stole your husband's money." Madame Felicia's eyes widened. For a moment, she thought she had heard wrongly. "What?" Desmond broke down again. I stole it." The widow's body froze. Her mind immediately traveled back to the day her husband died. Life had changed overnight. The man who had carried the family was suddenly gone. The grief alone was unbearable. Then reality arrived. Bills, school fees, food, rent, everything landed on her shoulders. At first, she wasn't too worried. She knew her husband had money. Before his death, he had completed a major contract. The payment had not yet arrived then, but it was expected soon afterward. Her husband had discussed it with her. He wasn't the type to hide important matters. A few months after the burial, she gathered her courage and visited the bank. That was when she met Desmond. The moment Desmond accessed the account, he noticed something. The expected payment had already arrived. The balance was enormous, far larger than he had anticipated. That discovery planted a dangerous seed in his heart: greed. From that day forward, Desmond began frustrating her. Whenever she submitted one document, another became necessary. Whenever she completed the requirement, a new obstacle appeared. The delays continued, week after week, month after month. He carefully maintained the image of a helpful officer. In fact, he often personally guided her through obtaining the required documents. That made her trust him even more. She never suspected that the man helping her was the same man secretly working against her. Meanwhile, her life was falling apart. Food became scarce. Her first daughter, who had spent 4 years trying to gain admission into the university, finally succeeded. It should have been a day of celebration. Instead, it became another tragedy. There was no money. The admission slipped away. The girl cried for days. Yet every time she returned to the bank, Desmond assured her everything was being processed. Everything was under review. Everything was normal. Then came the final blow. After months of exhausting back and forth, she was informed that the account contained barely 80,000 naira. Madam Felicia had stared at the statement in disbelief. Nothing about it made sense. She knew the payment was due. Yet, Desmond remained calm, professional, convincing. Perhaps the money had not been paid. Perhaps there had been delays. That was what she kept telling herself. But another voice inside her refused to rest. Something wasn't right. The feeling became stronger with every passing day. And strangely, whenever that feeling came, one image always flashed through her mind. Desmond, again and again. She could not explain why, but she could not ignore it either. Eventually, she made a decision. She traveled back to her village. There was an ancient shrine there. People feared it. People respected it. People believed it answered swiftly whenever innocent people were cheated. Madam Felicia had never imagined she would go there, but desperation changes people. Standing before the shrine, she poured out her heart. She spoke about her husband's death, her suffering, her hungry children, the money that had vanished. Then she made one simple prayer. If anyone has taken what belongs to me, let the gods expose them. If anyone is causing my children to suffer, fight for me. If anyone is lying to me, let them know no peace until they return what they stole. Afterward, she returned to the city. Nothing happened immediately, at least nothing she could see. But only a few days later, Desmond saw the first masquerade dancing in his office. Back in the present, tears streamed down Desmond's face as he confessed everything. He admitted that he had secretly conspired with criminals outside the bank. Using information he had access to, he helped facilitate fraudulent activity around the accounts while ensuring Madam Felicia remained trapped in endless delays and paperwork. The confession left everyone speechless. Madam Felicia stood silently, listening, watching, waiting. When Desmond finished, she spoke only once. "Return my money." Desmond began shaking. I will. Return every kobo. I will try. Madam Felicia's eyes hardened. No, this is not a matter of trying. Desmond's heart sank. The widow took a step closer. You have 7 days. Tears rolled down his cheek. I was not the only person involved. There are others. They took their own share. I cannot raise everything alone. But Madam Felicia showed no sympathy, and she wasn't interested in excuses. You found a way to take it. Now, find a way to return it. Then she pointed at him. If my money is not complete within 7 days, you will die. The word struck Desmond like thunder. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. Madam Felicia turned away. The conversation was over, and as Desmond watched her walk away, he suddenly noticed something that made his blood freeze. Standing behind her, where nobody else seemed to notice, a group of masquerade were quietly watching him, waiting, as though they too were counting down the 7 days. From the moment he left Madam Felicia that afternoon, panic became his constant companion. The following morning, Madam Felicia marched straight to the bank. This time, she wasn't there to beg. She wasn't there to submit documents. She was there to report Desmond. The complaint immediately caused panic among senior management. Within hours, Desmond was summoned for questioning. Desmond confessed completely. He admitted to manipulating the process surrounding her late husband's account. He admitted that he had worked with criminal associates outside the bank who specialized in financial fraud. The executives sitting before him could hardly believe what they were hearing. One after another, they asked questions. Desmond answered them all. By the end of the meeting, there was no doubt about his involvement. The bank immediately began disciplinary proceedings. Law enforcement agencies were informed. An arrest was being discussed, but Madam Felicia surprised everyone. "I am not interested in spending years in court." The room fell silent. She continued, "All I want is my husband's money. Recover it, return it, that is all." For Madam Felicia, justice meant restoring what had been taken from her family. Nothing more, nothing less. The investigation quickly revealed the extent of the loss. Almost 50 million naira had disappeared. The bank demanded information about the others involved. Desmond provided every detail he knew: names, phone numbers, meeting places, addresses, everything. Then he began calling them. One after another, nobody answered. He tried again, still nobody answered. Then the messages started appearing. Number not reachable, user unavailable, call failed. A cold feeling settled inside him. They had abandoned him. The moment news of the exposure reached them, they disappeared. Several numbers were permanently switched off. Others had blocked him completely. Meanwhile, the masquerade had become more vicious. Every night was torture. The beatings continued. The dreams became darker. The pain became worse. Some mornings he woke up screaming. Other mornings he woke up drenched in sweat. Sleep had become a prison. By the 5th day, Desmond looked like a different man. His face had lost weight. His confidence had disappeared. Even his own reflection frightened him. Then came the 6th day. The deadline was now only hours away. Desmond checked his account repeatedly. 10 million naira. That was all he could gather. Most of his share had already been spent on luxury purchases, an investment he could not liquidate quickly enough. 50 million was required, but he had only 10. The realization crushed him. That evening, he transferred every kobo he had managed to raise to Madam Felicia. When the transaction was completed, he sat quietly, staring at the receipt. It felt meaningless. He still owed millions, and tomorrow would be the 7th day. For the first time since childhood, Desmond cried, not because he had been caught, but because he genuinely believed he was going to die. That night, he did not sleep. He simply sat on the floor of his apartment, waiting, listening. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow frightened him. Every passing hour felt like a countdown. Midnight came, then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m., still alive. But fear refused to leave. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening elsewhere. The authorities had continued investigating the case. Desmond's confession had provided valuable leads. Investigators tracked phone records, financial transactions, and movements connected to the missing funds. Then came a breakthrough. One of the accomplices had been spotted attempting to leave the country through an unofficial border route. His suspicious movement triggered attention. Further investigations exposed others connected to the scheme. Within a short time, several members of the network were apprehended. The arrest created panic amongst those still hiding. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered funds linked to the fraud. Accounts were traced. Assets were identified. Large portions of the stolen money were recovered. The news spread quickly. By the afternoon of the 7th day, recovery efforts had yielded enough funds to cover the outstanding balance owed to Madam Felicia. The bank immediately processed the restitution. When Madam Felicia received confirmation that the full amount had been restored, she sat down quietly. For several minutes, she said nothing. Then she began to cry. Not tears of sorrow, tears of relief. Month of suffering, month of humiliation, month of uncertainty, finally over. For the first time since her husband's death, hope returned. The first thing she did was secure a decent apartment for her family. No more threat from landlords, no more fear of eviction, no more sleeping with anxiety. Next, she paid every outstanding school-related expense. Her daughter, whose university dream had been shattered, finally received another opportunity to continue her education. The day the girl resumed school, both mother and daughter wept. This time, they were tears of joy. Then Madam Felicia used part of the money to establish a business, one that could provide steady income and secure her family's future. Slowly, life began improving. The family started healing. As for Desmond, his own story ended very differently. The bank completed its internal investigation. The evidence against him was overwhelming. There was no possibility of keeping his job. No explanation could save him. No apology could undo the damage. The same executive office that once symbolized his success now became the place where his career officially ended. His employment was terminated. Just like that, years of hard work, years of professional achievement, gone. A man who had once risen to the top had destroyed himself through greed. The torment had finally stopped, but the price had been enormous. He had escaped death, yet he had lost almost everything else. And for the rest of his life, he would carry a painful lesson. The money he stole brought him luxury for a few months, but the consequences nearly cost him his soul. If you enjoyed this story, you will love the next one on your screen. Click to watch it now. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.